The ground shook again as another blast hit the mining station. Park Dong-hyuk pressed his back against the metal wall and counted the seconds between the explosions. 5 seconds. The alien ships were getting closer. "How many more can we take?" asked Kim Min-ho from across the dark room. The young man's face was dirty with dust and sweat. His hands shook as he held the broken radio. Dong-hyuk looked at the ceiling where cracks ran like spider webs. "Not many," he said. "Maybe 10 more hits before this whole place comes down." 3 months ago, life on Kepler 442b had been simple. The human colony called New Seoul was just a mining town. People worked hard digging up rare metals from deep underground. They had families, homes, and dreams of making enough money to return to Earth someday. Then the Vorthans came. The reptilian aliens arrived in huge black ships that blocked out the sun. They did not want to talk or trade. They wanted the humans gone. The Vorthans believed that only they deserved the precious metals buried in this planet's rocks. The first attack came without warning. Plasma beams from space turned the main city into burning ruins. The governor's mansion, the school, the market, everything became ash and smoke in minutes. Most people died in those first terrible hours, but some survived. Dong-hyuk had been a soldier once, back on Earth. He knew how to fight and how to make weapons from simple things. When the aliens landed their troops on the planet, he gathered the other survivors and led them into the deep mining tunnels. "We can't fight their big ships," he told everyone. "But we can make them pay for every step they take on our world." The tunnels became their fortress. Dong-hyuk showed the miners how. To turn their drilling lasers into weapons, they used mining explosives to set traps. Every corridor became a battlefield where humans fought with desperate courage against alien invaders. Lee Suna worked in the deepest part of the tunnels, taking care of wounded people. She had been the colony's main doctor, but now she was much more. She was hope. When people got hurt fighting the aliens, Suna fixed them up and sent them back to the battle. "Hold still," she told a young miner who had burns on his arm. "This will hurt, but you'll be able to fight again tomorrow." The miner gritted his teeth as Suna cleaned his wounds. Around them, other injured people lay on makeshift beds made from old mining equipment. The air smelled of medicine and fear. Min-ho spent his days trying to call for help. He had built a radio from spare parts found in the ruins. Every day, he sent the same message into space. "This is New Seoul Colony. We are under attack. Please help us." No one ever answered. "Maybe Earth doesn't know we're here," Min-ho said to Dong-hyuk one evening. They sat in the tunnel, sharing a can of food that tasted like metal. "Earth knows," Dong-hyuk replied. "But we're very far away. It takes time for messages to travel through space. What if they think we're already dead?" Dong-hyuk was quiet for a long moment. Outside, they could hear the alien ships flying overhead, their engines making a sound like angry thunder. "Then we proved them wrong by staying alive," he finally said. The Vorthans were not stupid. They knew the humans were hiding underground. Every day they sent soldiers into the tunnels to hunt them. The alien warriors were tall and strong, with thick green skin and yellow eyes that glowed in the dark. They carried weapons that shot bolts of burning energy. But the humans knew these tunnels better than anyone. They had dug them with their own hands. Every twist and turn was familiar. They set traps in the darkness and struck from hiding places the aliens could not find. Dong-hyuk led many of these underground battles. He moved through the tunnels like a ghost, appearing suddenly to attack alien patrols before vanishing again. His favorite weapon was an old mining laser that he had modified to fire faster and harder. "Remember," he told his fighters, "we don't have to win every battle. We just have to make them tired of fighting us." But the war was taking its toll on everyone. Food was running low. Medicine was almost gone. Worst of all, people were starting to lose hope. "How long can we keep this up?" asked Ji-hyun, one of the older miners. He had lost his wife in the first attack and now fought with nothing left to lose. "As long as we have to," Dong-hyuk answered, but even he was starting to doubt. The aliens had time and supplies. The humans had only their will to survive. One morning, Min-ho made an exciting discovery. While working on his radio, he found a way to use the mining station's big fusion reactor to make his signal stronger. If he could connect his radio to the reactor, maybe his message could reach farther into space. "It's dangerous," he explained to Dong-hyuk. If I make a mistake, the reactor could explode and kill us all. Dongyuk looked around at the tired faces of his people. Children were crying from hunger. Adults stared at the walls with empty eyes. They were dying slowly, day by day. Do it, he said. That night, while Vorthon ships patrolled overhead, Minho crawled through dark tunnels toward the reactor room. The fusion reactor was a huge metal cylinder that hummed with deadly power. One wrong move, and the entire mountain would become a crater. Suna watched him work, ready to pull him away if something went wrong. "Are you sure about this?" she whispered. "No," Minho admitted, sweat dripping down his face as he connected wires. "But we have to try." The work took hours. Outside, they could hear alien voices getting closer. A patrol was searching the tunnels nearby. Dongyuk and his fighters moved to block them, but they could not hold the aliens back forever. "Almost done," Minho said, his hands shaking as he made the final connection. The reactor's hum grew louder. Warning lights flashed red. The whole room began to vibrate. "Now or never," he said, and pressed the button to send their message. For a few seconds, the reactor channeled all its power into Minho's radio. The signal shot out into space like a beam of light, carrying their desperate plea for help across the vast darkness between stars. Then the connection burned out. Smoke filled the room as the equipment died. "Did it work?" Suna asked. Minho stared at his ruined radio. "I don't know. The signal was strong, but space is very big. Even if someone heard us, help might come too late." The alien patrol found them, an hour later. In the battle that followed, 3 more humans died defending the reactor room. But their message was already flying through space, racing toward home. On Earth, in the headquarters of the Defense Corps, Admiral Choi Hyun-woo was drinking coffee and reading reports when his communication officer burst into the room. "Sir, we just received a distress signal from the outer colonies. It's from Kepler 442b. The Admiral set down his coffee. "That's impossible. The Vorthons control that whole region." "Yes, sir, but the message got through. It says, New Sol Colony, 847, Sols. Vorthon siege. Send help." Admiral Choi stood up slowly. He had gray hair and scars from many battles. He had fought the Vorthons before and knew how cruel they could be. "How many ships do we have ready for combat?" he asked. "The First Fleet is on patrol near the Outer Rim, sir. 12 heavy cruisers, 36 destroyers, and the Terran Pride." The Admiral walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, humans were fighting and dying, believing that help would never come. "Get me a direct line to the fleet," he said. "It's time to show the Vorthons what happens when they threaten Earth's children." The message from New Sol Colony traveled through space for 3 weeks before it reached the Earth Defense Corps ship called Indomitable. The big warship was patrolling the edge of human space when the signal arrived. Admiral Choi Hyun-woo was in his command room studying star maps when his communication officer brought him the message. The Admiral was an old soldier with gray hair and many scars. He had fought aliens before and knew the cost of war. "Play it again," he ordered. The voice was young and scared, but determined. "New Sol Colony, 847 Sols. Vorthon siege. Send help." The Admiral stared at the star map. Kepler 442b was far from Earth, deep in dangerous space. The Vorthons controlled that whole area. For humans to still be alive there after months of fighting was almost impossible. "Sir," said Captain Yoon Ji-won, who commanded a smaller ship called Ghostwalker. "I know that planet. My brother worked there before the war started." Admiral Choi looked at her. Captain Yoon was young but smart. Her ship was special. It could hide from enemy sensors using new technology that made it almost invisible. "What do you know about the colony?" he asked. "It's a mining town. Maybe 3,000 people lived there before the attack. They dig up rare metals that we need for our ships and weapons." She paused. "If the Vorthons control those mines, they'll be much stronger." The Admiral nodded. He understood. Kepler 442b was not just about saving human lives, though that was important enough. The planet sat on one of the main space routes to Earth. If the aliens kept it, they could attack other human worlds more easily. "I want to know what's really happening there," he decided. "Captain Yoon, take your ship and scout the system. Be careful. We can't help those colonists if we lose you." Captain Yoon saluted. "Yes, sir." Ghostwalker can slip past their patrols. We'll find out what the situation is. Her ship was small and fast. Unlike the big warships with their heavy armor and powerful guns, Ghostwalker was built for sneaking around. Its hull was covered with special materials that bent light and radar in strange ways, making it very hard to see. The journey to Kepler 442b took 5 days. Captain Yoon and her crew moved carefully through alien space, avoiding Vorthon patrol ships. When they finally reached the planet, what they saw amazed them. "Look at that," whispered Lieutenant Park Seojin, the ship's pilot. He pointed at the scanner display. The planet was surrounded by Vorthon warships, at least 20 of them. The big alien vessels sat in orbit like hungry predators waiting to strike. Down on the planet's surface, the cities were dark ruins, but in one area, explosions still flashed in the night. "There," said Captain Yoon, pointing to the mining complex. "Someone's still fighting." They watched for hours, staying hidden behind the planet's small moon. The Vorthons were bombing the mining station over and over, but somehow the humans were still alive down there. Every few hours, alien troops would land near the complex, but the attacks always failed. "How are they doing it?" asked the ship's engineer, a woman named Hwamin. "The Vorthons have better weapons and more soldiers." Captain Yoon studied the scans. "They're underground. The mining tunnels must go very deep. The colonists are using the planet itself as their fortress." She sent a probe closer to the surface to get better information. The small robot flew through the planet's atmosphere and sent back detailed pictures. The mining complex was mostly destroyed, but human defenders were still active in the tunnel system below. "I count thermal signatures for about 800 people," reported the sensor officer. "They're spread out through maybe 50 kilometers of tunnels." 800, Captain Yoon repeated softly. The message said 847 souls. They've lost less than 50 people in 3 months of siege. It was incredible. The Vorthans were known across the galaxy as fierce warriors who never lost battles. But here, a small group of human miners was holding them off with mining equipment and determination. Meanwhile, back on the Indomitable, Dr. Shin Tai-hyun was studying pieces of Vorthon technology that had been captured in earlier battles. Dr. Shin was Earth's best expert on alien science. He spent his days taking apart enemy weapons and shields to understand how they worked. "Admiral," he called, hurrying into the command room with a computer tablet in his hands. "I think I've found something important." He showed the Admiral a complex diagram covered with numbers and symbols. "This is how Vorthon energy shields work. They use a rotating frequency pattern to deflect our weapons." "Speak plainly, Doctor," the Admiral said. "What does this mean for our ships?" "Their shields are very strong, but they have a weakness. For exactly 0.3 seconds every 12 seconds, the frequency drops to recharge. If we time our shots perfectly, we can punch through their defenses." The Admiral studied the data. "How sure are you about this?" "Very sure. I've tested it against captured shield generators. The pattern is always the same." This was huge news. In every battle with the Vorthons, human ships had trouble getting through their shields. The aliens seemed almost invincible, but now they had found a weakness. "How long would it take to update our weapons systems?" the Admiral asked. 6 hours for each ship, Dr. Shin replied. "But Admiral, there's something else. According to my calculations, Kepler 442b isn't just a mining world. The rare metals there are exactly what we need to build better shield generators for our own ships." The Admiral walked to the big window that looked out into space. His fleet was spread across several light years, 12 heavy cruisers and 36 destroyers. At the center was the Terran Pride, humanity's biggest and most powerful warship. It was enough firepower to destroy a small moon. But the Vorthons had more ships, and they had been preparing for months. A direct attack would be very dangerous. Captain Yoon's voice came through the communication system. "Admiral, this is Ghost. Walker. I'm sending you our reconnaissance data." The information appeared on the main screen. Pictures of the planet, numbers showing enemy ship positions, and detailed maps of the underground tunnel system where the colonists were hiding. "As you can see," Captain Yoon continued, "the humans are still alive, but barely. The Vorthons have them completely surrounded. They're bombing the surface constantly and sending ground troops into the tunnels every day." "What's your assessment?" "Captain?" the Admiral asked. "They can't hold out much longer. Maybe another week, 2 at most. But Admiral, what they've accomplished is amazing. These aren't soldiers. They're miners and families. Yet they've been fighting the Vorthon Empire to a standstill for 3 months. The Admiral looked around his command room at the faces of his officers. These were good people, brave people, but they were also military professionals who understood the risks. Attacking the Vorthon fleet would mean a major battle with uncertain results. "Sir," said Commander Naonji, who led the ship's marine soldiers, "my troops are ready. If those colonists can hold underground tunnels with mining lasers, imagine what we can do with proper weapons and training." "The question," said the Admiral quietly, "is whether we can get there in time, and whether we can win when we arrive." He thought about the message again. 847 souls, families with children, people who had built a new life on a distant world and now faced extinction. They had sent their desperate plea into space, probably, not believing anyone would ever hear it. But Earth had heard, and Earth never forgot its children. "Dr. Shin," the Admiral ordered, "start updating our weapon systems immediately. I want every ship ready to use your new frequency data." "Yes, sir." "Captain Yoon, stay hidden and keep watching. I want hourly reports on the situation." "Understood, Admiral." "Commander Yoonji, prepare your Marines for ground assault. We're going to need soldiers who can fight in those tunnels." "My people will be ready, sir." The Admiral turned to his navigation officer. "Set course for Kepler 442b, maximum speed." "Sir, that will take us deep into Vorthon territory. If they detect us coming, then we'll fight our way through the eye," Admiral said firmly. "Those colonists have been holding the line for 3 months. They believe help will never come. It's time to prove them wrong." As the great ships of Earth's first fleet changed course and accelerated toward the distant battle, Admiral Choi thought about the young voice in that message. Someone barely more than a boy, probably, sending humanity's cry for help into the vast darkness of space. "Hold on," he whispered to the stars. "We're coming." Admiral Choi Hyun-woo stood on the bridge of the Terran Pride and watched the stars change as his fleet raced through space. They had been traveling for 4 days toward Kepler 442b, pushing their engines harder than ever before. Every hour counted now. "How much longer?" he asked his navigation officer. 18 hours until we reach the planet, sir," came the reply. 18 hours. The Admiral hoped the colonists could survive that long. Captain Yoon's latest reports were not good. The Vorthans had brought in more ships and were bombing the mining complex day and night. The underground tunnels were starting to collapse. "Sir," said Commander Na Yoon-ji, walking up to him. She was the leader of the Void Raiders, Earth's most elite marine unit. Her soldiers wore powered armor that made them stronger and faster than normal humans. "My troops are ready for the drop." The commander was a small woman, but her reputation was huge. She had fought in 12 major battles and never lost a single mission. Her Marines would follow her anywhere, even into the deepest alien tunnel systems. "How many soldiers do you have ready?" the Admiral asked. 200 of my best fighters," she replied. "They're trained for underground combat and tunnel warfare. If we can get them to the planet's surface, they can link up with the colonists and turn this siege around." The Admiral nodded. The plan was risky but simple. The fleet would attack the Vorthon ships in orbit while Commander Yoonji's Marines dropped down to help the colonists. If everything went right, they could save the colony and drive off the aliens. If everything went wrong, they would all die very far from home. Down on Kepler 442b, the situation was becoming desperate. Park Dong-hyuk crouched in a damaged tunnel, listening to explosions getting closer and closer. The Vorthon bombing had collapsed 3 main tunnels in the past day. His people were running out of places to hide. "How many fighters do we have left?" he asked Ji-hyun, one of his trusted assistants. "Maybe 60 who can still fight," Ji-hyun answered. "The rest are too wounded or too young. 60 fighters against thousands of alien soldiers. 3 months ago, Dong-hyuk would have said it was impossible. Now he knew that humans could do impossible things when they had no other choice. What about supplies? Food for maybe a week, medical supplies almost gone, and the fusion reactor is starting to fail from all the bombing. Without the reactor, they would have no power for lights, air recycling, or weapons. The aliens would just wait for them to suffocate in the dark." In the deepest part of the tunnel system, Lee Suna worked by the light of a single emergency lamp. She was treating a young girl who had been hurt when part of the ceiling fell down. The girl's mother watched with worried eyes. "Will she be okay?" the mother asked. Suna smiled, even though she was exhausted. "She'll be fine. Kids are tougher than they look." But privately, Suna was very worried. She was almost out of medicine. The next person who got seriously hurt might die because she had nothing left to help them with. And more people were getting sick from the bad air and lack of food. Kim Minho sat in front of his broken radio, trying to fix it with parts from other damaged equipment. Since sending their message 3 weeks ago, he had heard nothing from space. No reply, no rescue signal, nothing. "Maybe nobody heard us," said a young miner sitting nearby. "Maybe we're really alone." Minho looked up from his work. "Earth heard us. I know they did." "How can you be sure?" "Because if nobody heard us, then all of this fighting means nothing, and I don't believe that." He went back to his repairs, refusing to give up hope. The Vorthons were getting impatient too. War leader Tekmar paced on the bridge of his flagship, angry that these humans were still alive. His ships had been bombing for months. His soldiers had attacked dozens of times, but still the mining complex held out. "How many humans can there be down there?" he demanded from his officers. "Our scans show thermal signatures for about 700 individuals," replied his sensor operator. "But they are spread through a very complex tunnel system. Finding them all would take many months." This was embarrassing. The Vorthon Empire was supposed to be the strongest military force in the galaxy. They had conquered dozens of worlds and defeated armies much larger than this small human colony. Yet here they were, stuck fighting miners with improvised weapons. "I want this ended," Tekmar ordered. "Prepare the deep strike bombs. We'll collapse their entire tunnel system at once." His officers looked nervous. Deep strike bombs were very powerful weapons that could crack a planet's crust. Using them would destroy the valuable mining complex completely. "War leader," one officer said carefully, "the High Command wanted us to capture the mining facilities intact. If we use deep strike bombs—" "The High Command is not here fighting these stubborn humans," Tekmar snarled. "Better to destroy everything than let them keep humiliating us." He gave the order. His ships began preparing the massive bombs that would end the siege once and for all. Far above, Captain Yoon watched from her hidden position behind the planet's moon. Her sensors detected the energy buildup in the Vorthon ships as they prepared their most powerful weapons. "Admiral," she reported urgently, "the Vorthans are charging deep strike bombs. If they use those weapons, there won't be anything left to save." Admiral Choi received the message while his fleet was still 16 hours away from the planet. Too far to help, too far to save anyone. "Options?" he asked his staff. "We could try a long-range missile strike," suggested his weapons officer. "But at this distance, the Vorthons would have plenty of time to shoot down our missiles." "What about a distraction?" asked Dr. Shin Tae-hyun. "If we could make them think a bigger fleet was coming from another direction." The Admiral considered this. It might work, but it was very risky. If the Vorthons discovered the trick, they would finish off the colonists immediately and then prepare better defenses against the real fleet. "Do it," he decided. "Launch a spread of long-range missiles on a curved trajectory. Make it look like they're coming from the other side of the system. That might buy us a few more hours." The missiles streaked away into space, programmed to approach Kepler 442b from an unexpected angle. It would take them 8 hours to reach the planet, but the Vorthons would detect them much sooner. Down in the tunnels, Dong-hyuk felt the ground shake differently than before. The bombing had stopped. For the first time in months, there was silence above them. "What's happening?" asked Suna, emerging from her medical station. Minho had his ear pressed to his partially working radio. "I'm getting fragments of alien communications. Something has them excited." "Good excited or bad excited? I can't tell. But they've stopped bombing us." Dong-hyuk gathered his remaining fighters. "This might be our chance to hit back. If they're distracted by something else, we could attack their ground positions." It was a desperate plan. His 60 fighters against thousands of aliens. But they had survived this long by being unpredictable. Maybe they could cause enough damage to buy more time. "Sir," said one of his fighters, a woman named Kyung, who had been a mining engineer before the war. "I've been thinking about the main mining shaft. It goes almost to the surface, and it's right under their main landing pad." Dong-hyuk looked at her. "What are you suggesting?" "We still have explosives. if we could plant them in the right place. He understood immediately. They could collapse the shaft and take out a large number of alien troops at once. It would probably mean death for whoever planted the explosives, but it might give the colony a few more days of life. "I'll do it," he said. "No," Kyung replied firmly. "I know those shafts better than anyone. This is my job." In space, the Vorthon war leader received reports about the approaching missiles. His sensors showed a small fleet coming from the edge of the system, probably a human reconnaissance force that had heard the colonists' distress call. "How many ships?" he demanded. "Difficult to determine at this range, war leader. Perhaps 6 to 8 vessels." Theckamar considered his options. His fleet was much larger than 8 human ships, but humans were known for their tricks and unexpected tactics. "Better to be careful. Hold the deep strike bombing," he ordered. "Deploy the reserve fleet to intercept those ships. Once we deal with them, we can finish the colonists properly." Half of his ships moved away from the planet to fight the incoming threat. This left only 10 Vorthon vessels in orbit, still more than enough to handle the humans below, but it gave the colonists a small breathing space. Admiral Choi smiled when he received Captain Yoon's report about the Vorthon fleet movement. The trick was working. Now his real fleet had a better chance of achieving surprise when they arrived. "All ships, increase to maximum speed," he ordered. "We're going to hit them while they're divided." The great engines of the Terran Pride roared louder as the massive ship pushed through space faster than ever before. Behind it, the rest of Earth's first fleet followed like a pack of hunting wolves, 14 hours until they reached the planet. Admiral Choi looked at the tactical display and calculated distances, speeds, and timing. It would be close, very close. On Kepler 442b, Kyung prepared for her final mission. She had filled a backpack with every explosive they could spare. It was enough to bring down a mountain, let alone a mining shaft. "Tell my daughter I was brave," she said to Dong-yuk before disappearing into the dark tunnels. He watched her go, knowing he would probably never see her again. The explosion came from deep underground, shaking the entire Vorthon base camp. War leader Theckamar felt his flagship vibrate as the blast wave traveled through the planet's crust. On his tactical screen, he watched a section of his ground forces disappear. "Report," he demanded. "The main landing area has collapsed," his operations officer replied, fear clear in his voice. "The humans detonated explosives in the mining shaft. We've lost 300 soldiers and most of our heavy equipment." Theckamar snarled in rage. These stubborn humans kept finding new ways to hurt his forces. For months, they had turned what should have been a simple conquest into a humiliating siege. "Send all remaining ground troops into the tunnels," he ordered. "I want every human found and killed. No more games." Down in the collapsed mining shaft, Kyung's sacrifice had bought the colonists' valuable time. The explosion had taken out a large section of the alien base and sealed several tunnel entrances, but it had also used up most of their remaining explosives. Park Dong-hyuk stood at the edge of the new crater, looking up at the surface far above. Sunlight streamed down through the hole, the first natural light they had seen in months. "How long before they regroup?" asked Ji-hyun. "Not long," Dong-hyuk replied. "Maybe a few hours. They'll be angry now, and angry enemies make mistakes." In her medical station, Lee Suna felt the explosion's aftershock and knew what it meant. Kyung had succeeded, but the cost was enormous. They were running out of people, running out of supplies, running out of hope. A young boy ran up to her. "Dr. Suna, the radio man wants everyone to come quickly." She followed the boy through the dark tunnels to where Kim Min-ho sat with his rebuilt radio. His face was bright with excitement. "Listen," he said, adjusting the controls. Through the static and interference came a voice speaking clear Korean. "New Sol Colony, this is Earth Defense Corps vessel Indomitable. We are approaching your position. Hold your positions. Help is coming." For a moment, nobody spoke. Then someone started crying. Then someone else started laughing. Soon the whole tunnel was filled with voices as people called to their friends and families. "Earth came," whispered an old woman who had lost her husband in the first attack. "They actually came." Minho tried to reply, but his transmitter was too weak to reach the ships in space. "I can receive their signals, but I can't talk back to them," he explained. "It doesn't matter," said Dong-hyuk, putting his hand on the young man's shoulder. "They know we're here. That's enough." High above the planet, Admiral Choi's fleet dropped out of hyperspace like avenging angels. The Terran Pride led the way, its massive hull bristling with weapons. Behind it came 12 heavy cruisers and 36 destroyers, the finest ships in Earth's navy. "Tactical assessment," the Admiral ordered. 10 Vorthon ships in orbit around the planet," reported his weapons officer. "Another 12 moving too. Intercept our decoy missiles on the far side of the system." "Perfect. They've split their forces exactly as we hoped." The Admiral turned to his communications officer. "Signal all ships. Attack formation Beta. Target their orbital fleet first." The Earth ships spread out like a deadly flower, each one taking position to maximize their combined firepower. Admiral Choi had fought the Vorthons before and knew their tactics. They relied on superior shields and heavy weapons, but they were not as flexible as human ships. "Dr. Shin's frequency data is loaded into all weapons systems," reported the weapons officer. "Good. Remember, we only get one chance to use that advantage. After the first strike, they'll adapt their shields." The Vorthan war leader saw the human fleet arrive and immediately understood his mistake. While chasing the decoy missiles, he had left himself vulnerable to a concentrated attack. But he was still confident. 10 Vorthan ships should be more than enough to handle 12 human vessels. "All ships, battle formation," he ordered. "Show these humans the power of the Empire." The two fleets rushed toward each other across the darkness of space. Energy weapons began firing when they were still thousands of kilometers apart, filling the void with deadly light. The first exchange of fire seemed to go the Vorthans' way. Their powerful plasma cannons hammered the human ships while their shields deflected most of the return fire. But Admiral Choi was waiting for the right moment. "All weapons, implement frequency targeting," he commanded. "Fire on my mark." The human ships synchronized their attacks, timing their shots to hit during the brief moment when the Vorthon shields were recharging. The effect was devastating. Weapons that had been useless against alien defenses suddenly tore through their hulls like paper. 3 Vorthon ships exploded in the first coordinated volley. A fourth lost its engines and began spinning helplessly. The remaining alien vessels scattered in confusion, their shields flickering as they tried to adapt to the new threat. "Now!" Admiral Choi shouted. "All ships, full attack!" The human fleet surged forward, pressing their advantage. The massive guns of the Terran Pride punched through a Vorthan cruiser's armor, splitting it in half. Smaller destroyers darted between the alien ships like wolves, striking at vulnerable spots. Lieutenant Park Seojin, piloting his fighter craft Razor, led a squadron of smaller ships against the Vorthan carriers. His job was to destroy the alien fighter craft before they could attack the larger human vessels. "Razor Squadron, follow my lead," he called to his pilots. "Use the asteroid belt for cover." The young pilot was known for his unconventional tactics. While other pilots flew in straight lines and relied on speed, Seojun used the environment around him. He darted between floating rocks and used their shadows to hide from enemy sensors. "There!" he called, spotting a group of Vorthon fighters emerging from their carrier. "Hit them before they can form up." His squadron struck like lightning, destroying half the alien fighters before they could react. The survivors fled back to their carrier, which promptly exploded when the Terran Pride's main guns found its reactor. Down on the planet, Commander Na Yunji's Marines prepared for their drop. 200 of Earth's finest soldiers sat in their assault pods, waiting for the signal to launch. "Remember," the commander told her troops, "these colonists have been fighting for 3 months with mining equipment. They've already proven they're warriors. Our job is to give them the support they deserve." The Marines wore powered armor that made them faster and stronger than normal humans. Their weapons could punch through Vorthon battle gear. Most importantly, they were trained for exactly this kind of underground fighting. "Drop pods away," came the call from the ship's bridge. 200 pods streaked down through the planet's atmosphere like falling stars. The Vorthans tried to shoot them down, but the pods were small and fast. Most made it through the enemy fire to land near the mining complex. Commander Yunji's pod hit the ground hard, throwing up a cloud of dust and debris. She kicked open the door and stepped out, her armor's sensors immediately scanning for threats. "Sound off!" she called to her troops. "Alpha Squad, ready! Beta Squad, ready! Charlie Squad, ready!" One by one, her squads reported in. They had lost only 12 pods during the drop, much better than expected. Move toward the mining complex, she ordered. Find the colonists and link up with their forces. The Marines advanced across the scarred landscape, their armor protecting them from the alien weapons. Vorthon soldiers tried to stop them, but they were facing Earth's best fighters now, not exhausted miners. In the tunnels below, Dongyuk heard the sound of human weapons echoing from above. The familiar whine of plasma rifles, the distinctive crack of magnetic accelerators. After months of fighting with improvised tools, the sound of proper military equipment was like music. "They're here," he told his fighters. "Earth's soldiers are here." A few minutes later, a voice called down from the main tunnel entrance. "Hello down there. This is Commander Na Yunji, Earth Defense Corps Marines. Is anyone alive?" Dongyuk climbed up toward the voice, hardly believing what he was hearing. At the tunnel mouth, he found a figure in gleaming, powered armor, holding a weapon that could have cut through a Vorthon tank. "I'm Park Dong-hyuk, Colony Defense Coordinator," he said. The Marine's helmet retracted, revealing the face of a woman with kind eyes and a fierce smile. "Commander Na Yunji, we got your message. Sorry it took us so long to respond." Behind her, more Marines were securing the area and setting up defensive positions. In the distance, the sounds of battle continued as human and alien forces clashed across the planet's surface. "How many survivors do you have?" the commander asked. "About 700, mostly in the deep tunnels. We've been living underground since the siege started." Commander Yunji nodded with respect. 700 survivors after 3 months against the Vorthons. That's incredible. Your people are heroes." "We just did what we had to do," Dong-hyuk replied. "That's what makes you heroes," she said. "Now let's finish this fight properly." Above them in space, the battle was turning decisively in humanity's favor. The Vorthon orbital fleet was broken and scattered. Admiral Choi's ships hunted down the survivors while preparing for the return of the alien reinforcements. "Sir," reported the communications officer, "we're receiving a surrender signal from the Vorthan ground commander." Admiral Choi looked at the tactical display. The aliens on the planet were trapped between his Marines and the angry colonists. Their ships in orbit were destroyed or fleeing. It was over. The war leader, Thekmar's flagship, burned in the darkness of space, its hull cracked open like a broken egg. Escape pods drifted away from the dying ship while Admiral Choi's fleet maintained their defensive positions around Kepler 442b. "The remaining Vorthon ships are retreating," reported the weapons officer aboard the Terran Pride. "They're requesting safe passage out of the system." Admiral Choi watched the alien ships flee on his tactical display. The Vorthan Empire had suffered a crushing defeat here. Their reputation for being unbeatable was now broken, scattered among the debris of their destroyed fleet. "Let them go," he decided, "but send a message to their commanders. Tell them that any future attacks on human colonies will be met with the full force of Earth's Navy." Down on the planet's surface, Commander Na Yunji led her Marines through the mining complex, securing the area and helping the colonists emerge from their underground shelters. Many of the survivors had not seen sunlight in months. "Take it slow," she told an elderly man who was blinking in the bright light. "Your eyes need time to adjust." The colonists looked like ghosts rising from the earth. They were thin from lack of food, pale from living underground, and many bore scars from the long siege. But they were alive, and they had won. Park Dong-hyuk walked among his people, hardly believing the nightmare was finally over. Children who had grown up in tunnels now played in the open air. Families hugged each other and cried tears of joy and relief. "We did it," he said to Ji-hyun, his old friend, who had fought beside him through the entire siege. "We actually survived." "Earth came for us," Ji-hyun replied, his voice full of wonder. "Just like you said they would." In the medical station that Lee Suna had set up in the tunnels, Earth's military doctors worked alongside her to treat the wounded. They brought supplies that seemed miraculous after months of shortages: real medicine, fresh food, clean bandages. "Doctor," said a young military medic to Suna, "I've read your reports on treating Vorthan weapon injuries. The techniques you developed here could save thousands of lives on other worlds." Suna looked around at her makeshift hospital, built from mining equipment and desperate improvisation. "We just did what we had to do with what we had." "That's exactly what makes it so valuable," the medic replied. Medical schools will be teaching your methods for years to come. Kim Min-ho stood beside his rebuilt radio, now connected to the powerful communication systems of the Earth fleet. For the first time in months, he could talk to anyone in human space. New Sol Colony to Earth Command. He spoke into the microphone. This is Kim Min-ho, communications specialist. The colony is secure. All survivors are safe. The reply came back immediately. Earth Command to New Sol. Message received and understood. Well done, son. The whole galaxy knows what you accomplished. There. Minho smiled and leaned back in his chair. The radio that had been his lifeline during the siege was now carrying messages of victory across the stars. Admiral Choi came down to the planet's surface in a shuttle to meet with the colony leaders. He found Dong-yuk in the ruins of the main mining facility, looking at plans for rebuilding. Mr. Park, the Admiral said, offering his hand. I'm Admiral Choi Hunwoo. It's an honor to meet you. Dong-yuk shook the Admiral's hand, still amazed to be talking with the man who had led Earth's rescue fleet. The honor is ours, sir. Thank you for coming. You held this place for 3 months against a Vorthon siege fleet, the Admiral said. That's something no military unit in the galaxy has ever accomplished. How did you do it? Dong-hyuk looked around at the scarred landscape, thinking of all the people who had died defending their home. We had something the Vorthons didn't understand. We were fighting for our families, our homes, our future. They were just fighting to take something from us. The Admiral nodded. I've seen a lot of battles, Mr. Park. But what you people did, here will be remembered forever. Dr. Shin Tae-hyun arrived on the planet with a team of scientists to study the Vorthon technology left behind, but he was more interested in the human innovations created during the siege. This is remarkable, he said, examining one of the modified mining lasers that Dong-hyuk's fighters had used. You increased the power output by 30% and doubled the firing rate. How did you figure this out? Trial and error, replied Kyung-soo, one of the surviving engineers. When your life depends on making something work better, you find ways. Dr. Shin smiled. We're going to study these modifications and apply them to our military equipment. Your innovations here might give us an advantage in future battles. The rescue operation took several days. Earth's medical ships evacuated the most seriously wounded, while engineering vessels began repairing the mining complex. But the colonists made it clear they intended to stay and rebuild their home. This is our world, Dong-hyuk told Admiral Choi. We're not leaving because some aliens tried to take it from us. I understand, the Admiral replied. But Kepler 442b is strategically important now. Earth Command wants to build a military base here to protect the system. That's fine, Dong-hyuk agreed. But this will always be a civilian colony first. We came here to build new lives, and that's what we're going to do. The Admiral looked around at the determined faces of the colonists. These people had faced the worst the galaxy could throw at them and refused to give up. They deserved respect. Earth will provide whatever support you need, he promised. Ships, supplies, soldiers, anything you require to rebuild and defend. Your home! Commander Na Yoonji's Marines worked alongside the colonists to clear the damage and establish security. Many of her soldiers were amazed by what the civilians had accomplished with minimal resources. Look at this, said Sergeant Johan, examining a tunnel defense system. They turned a mining tunnel into a fortress that held off Vorthon assault troops for months. These people are natural warriors, the commander agreed. They just never knew it until they had to be. As news of the victory spread across human space, Kepler 442b became famous throughout the galaxy. The small mining colony that had refused to surrender became a symbol of human determination and courage. Captain Yoon Ji-won brought her ship Ghostwalker to the planet's surface and met with the colonists who had made her mission possible. Your signal reached us because you never gave up trying, she told Kim Min-ho. That courage saved everyone here. Years later, when historians wrote about the Vorthon War, they always mentioned the siege of New Sol. The 3 months when ordinary humans held off the galaxy's most feared military force became a legend that inspired people across the stars. A monument was built at the site of the mining complex, listing the names of everyone who had died defending the colony. But the real monument was the thriving city that grew around it, protected by both Earth's fleet and the unbreakable spirit of its people. Dong-hyuk became the colony's first elected governor after the war. Suna established a medical school that trained doctors in battlefield medicine. Minho went on to design communication systems for the Earth Defense Corps, but they never forgot the lesson of those dark months in the tunnels. When humans stand together, no force in the universe can break them. Admiral Choi kept a recording of the original distress message in his personal files. Sometimes, when facing difficult decisions, he would play it again. New Soul Colony, 847 souls, Vorthan siege, send help. It reminded him why Earth's fleet existed, not to conquer or intimidate, but to protect the brave people who carried human dreams to distant worlds. The Vorthan Empire never again attacked a human colony. The defeat at Kepler 442b had shown the galaxy that humanity would defend its own with a ferocity that matched any alien warrior race. More importantly, it had shown that ordinary humans could become heroes when the situation demanded it. In his final report, Admiral Choi wrote, "The colonists of New Sol held their position for 127 days because they believed Earth would come for them. They were right. We always come. That is what makes us human, and that is what makes us strong." The Battle of Kepler 442b was over, but its legacy lived on. Across human space, people looked up at the stars and knew that no matter how far they traveled, no matter what dangers they faced, Earth would never abandon them. And in the deep tunnels beneath New Sol, children born after the siege listened to their parents tell stories of the dark time when aliens came to destroy their world and how courage and determination had saved them all. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson. When you threaten a human colony, you're not just fighting those people. You're fighting all of humanity. And humanity never gives up. That was the true victory of Kepler 442b. Not just the military defeat of the Vorthans, but the proof that the human spirit could not be conquered by any force in the universe. The stars belonged to those brave enough to claim them, and humans had proven they were the bravest of all.